Okay, so let's continue from here. What we are talking about. Okay, so there's one more point other than what we mentioned here. Suppose we also need to calculate what is the net force acting on the bottom surface of the container. See, if we calculate, see here, the force exerted by the liquid. If height is h, force exerted by the liquid will be, pressure will be P naught plus rho gh into area. But outside also, even if we keep on any surface, I think one more point all of you need to understand here. If you keep any vessel on a surface also, even if you make the surface very smooth, there's always air pressure is acting on the bottom side of vessel also. Because unless the surface contacts are made airtight and all air molecules are removed, there's always the pressure acting from other side as well. So if we have to calculate what is the force exerted by the liquid, force exerted by the liquid will be equal to P naught plus rho gh into area. But what is the net force on the bottom surface? Net force will be equal to minus P naught. Net force on the bottom surface will be equal to rho gh into area. And we can also expect what is the net force equal to. This net force can always also be expressed in terms of weight of water, whatever water is there inside the container, weight of water plus weight of any other floating object. Or if any other object is floating, so any object floating is what? Well, liquid is exerting force of buoyancy, and that object also is exerting a force equal to force of buoyancy. So what is the net force on the bottom? Weight of the liquid plus weight of all the objects which are floating or submerged. If it is something lying here also, it is lying on the flat of the surface, that has to sink. So when the coil is removed from here, is dropped into the tank here, has the net force on the bottom surface changed? No, net force has not changed. Okay, continue with some more question on basically this similar principle here. So you have a weighing balance, and in the weighing balance, both sides are equal. And we have suspended two mass. One is 36 grams, other is 48 grams. We have taken this mass in the air, and we submerge, and we find they are it is in a state of equilibrium. It is horizontal and a state of equilibrium. And what all is given here? Mass of one body is 36 grams, and so density also is given. So density of this material is given as 9 grams per centimeter cube, or relative density is 9. What we need to do, need to find the density of other material or relative density of the second mass. So when such question, when something is like this there, how do we find? And let's say this, what principle are applicable? See, as far as this balance goes, here also tension T1 is acting, and this tension T1 is acting, and this same tension is pulling it down. This is how the forces are acting. As I said, all forces are nothing but laws of motion, and these two forces must be equal because the lengths are equal. It's a question of rotational equilibrium. If distances are equal, so both must have same tension. Okay, and what is this tension is equal to? Tension is nothing but apparent weight. Tension is equal to weight of the object minus force of buoyancy. So apparent weights are equal as torques are equal. So left side, what is the okay, so one more thing we understand here, if mass is 9 grams, if density is given, it means volume of this object is 4 cubic centimeter. And so left side, what is the net force acting? Volume of the object into density minus density of the liquid. Why minus rho L has come? Because of force of buoyancy. Vg rho s minus rho L, that's the net side force. And apparent weight here, this will come to the 32. So 36 minus the volume of liquid displaced. Volume of liquid is water, which will be, since the volume is 4 minus 4, so this is 32 grams. That's the value here. So this also has to be 32 grams. So weight of this object minus force of buoyancy due to water has to come equal to 32 grams. So 32 gram has to be equal to 48 into G minus the weight of minus force of buoyancy. If force of buoyancy has to be equal to how much now? If I look at this, what is the force of buoyancy should be equal to? Force of buoyancy has to be equal to 16 grams, 16 gram weight. And if it is 16 gram weight, since it is water, 16 gram weight is equal to 16 cc. So indirectly it implies this volume of this object is equal to 16 cc. If volume is 16 cc, mass is 48, density is 3. Okay, I'm going through number of questions related to this topic, and a cube of wood is supporting 200 grams of mass, just floats in water. So whenever we say just float in water, if a cube is just floating into water, it means volume submerged is equal to volume of the cube. That's one way you can understand just submerged. Second, we can understand the top surface is in line with the water level or liquid level. So this top surface here, so cube is inside the water and it supports a mass here. Mass is outside the water. This is how it is floating. So one question is, when the mass is removed, the cube rises by 2 centimeters. Of course, when we remove the mass, as we were discussing previous case also, I hope all of you are clear. When we remove the mass, of course, the cube will rise, and cube rises by 2 centimeters. So earlier top surface was at the water level. Now top surface has become 2 centimeters above the water level. What is the length of the side of the cube? That's what the question is. Let's solve it. When the mass is removed, the weight is reduced by 200 grams. 200 grams of weight is reduced. Hence, force of buoyancy also reduced by same magnitude. And since it's water, if weight is reduced by 200 grams, volume of water displaced also will reduce by how much? How many cc? 200 cc. So it means that this question indirectly it implies that volume of water displaced gets reduced by 200 cc. So this volume, what we see here, this the volume, this should be equal to 200 cc. That's one way, but you can think of another way to approach this question. What is the other way of reverse order? Reverse order, let's say if this is the initial condition. Initial condition, the cube is floating with 2 centimeters above the water, because sometimes this is easier to understand. It is floating with 2 centimeters of cube above the water. When I place this mass here, it becomes fully submerged. Okay, so what is the extra, what we equate now here, when I have this initial state and this is the final state here? So what has happened? Change in weight is equal to change in force of buoyancy. What is weight equal to? Weight is equal to 200 grams. 200 gram weight, 200 G is the weight. And what is the change in force of buoyancy? Change of buoyancy, density of water into volume into G. Okay. So G terms cancelled. And density of water, if you take CGS unit, is equal to 1. So which tells you V is equal to 200 cc. If V is equal to 200 cc, what is volume here? L square into 2. So L has to be equal to 10 centimeter. Yes, Ignesh.
So can you explain the first method once more, sir? Like when we remove the
first method is the reverse of the same case. What has happened here? See, when we reduce the mass, the volume displaced also will get reduced. By how much volume displaced will get reduced? So that the weight, weight of the, see, if volume gets reduced by, to what extent we have, if weight is getting reduced by 200 grams. And when we are talking of water, the volume of water get displaced also reduced by how much? 200 cc. This question he could have solved without putting pen to paper. If 200 grams weight is lifted up, the volume of water displaced also will get reduced by 200 cc. So to that extent, Q will come out. So what is the volume of cube which will be projecting out of the water level? Or what is the volume of cube which will be above water level? The volume will be equal to 200 cc. So height is 2. So 2 into cross-section area is equal to 200 cc.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's look at this something like when the two blocks are connected. When these two are connected also, again, every time when you look at some question, first thing should come to mind, all are equilibrium question. A cubical block of wood weighing 200 grams has a lead piece fastened underneath. So there's a wooden piece here and lead. So one of them is having lower density than water, other has higher density than water. Find the mass of the lead piece, which will just allow the block to float in water. Okay. So just float in water, it means wooden block also is fully submerged. This is the figure here. The specific gravity of wood is given as 0.8 and density of specific gravity of lead is 12. So what we need to find here, it is floating, and what else is given here? This M is equal to 200 grams. its density is given, which is equal to 0.8. So it means its volume also is known. So what is volume? If mass is given and density is given, volume is 200 by 0.8. So that will be in terms of cc. It is volume is given 250 cc. This is what a wooden block is. What we need to find here, we need to find the mass of the lead. We need to find the value of m here, and its density also is given. Density is 12. How do we find this one? The net force on these two composite system has to be equal to 0. So volume of wooden piece, first we find out. Volume plus is easy to find. And let the volume of lead piece also be VCC. So I am not calculating mass first because force of buoyancy, volume, it always depends on volume. So let me assume the volume of lead piece which is required is equal to VCC, and which is just sufficient to keep it floating. Just keep it floating means what? This is something what does just floating mean? So the normal reaction exerted, this lead block is lying on the surface with normal reaction equal to 0. That's the net. Then this means net floating. Because if I add more weight here, what will happen? If we keep adding more weight, only thing what will change is the normal reaction between the surface and the lead block will change. Just floating means this is fully submerged and the normal reaction is 0. That's what just floating means. So it means if the depth was greater also, if I redraw the figure, if you fill it up to like this also, if I leave them, both of them here, they will just keep floating. So let the volume of piece be V, and so his mass will be equal to 12 V in terms of grams. Thus mass will be equal to. So block of wood and lead as a system, lead with the string as a system, combined weight has to be equal to combined force of buoyancy. So two things we have taken. One thing I think all of you understand, just floating means normal reaction has to be equal to 0. And I have assumed the volume to be V. Let me and this equation comes from laws of motion. Combined weight of these two together as a system is equal to combined force of buoyancy. Let me write what is the weight equal to. All I'm writing is CGS unit here. Whenever water is involved, CGS units are better. 200 plus the volume is 12 V. So this mass is 12 V. Sorry, mass is 12 V. So this is the weight of two together as a system. This weight has to be equal to density of water, which is 1. We are doing CGS unit, into volume of wooden block plus the volume of lead block into G. We get the value of V here. So that's how we just floating kind of question we can solve, and we get this volume of V and mass. Once you get volume, we get the mass also. Okay, I think some second part also then. Second variation of the question could be something like this. I have not identified this forward. What is the second variation? We have seen similar something similar before. See, if a lead piece is not connected here, the wooden block would have been floating in the liquid. Its density is 0.8 relative density. It means it will float with 80% of the volume inside, 20% volume outside. Another question could be, what is the mass I have to place? What is the mass of lead block I need to place at the top so as to completely submerge this wooden block here? Will this M and N be same? Actually, these two M will not be same. In this case, what will happen when it fully submerged, the block will be here. When it will fully submerged, in this particular case, force of buoyancy is acting on the lead block here. And in this case, when we say what is the mass of lead block I should place so that only wooden block is completely submerged. So is the lead block submerged in that case? Lead block is not submerged. So when we have in that case the force of buoyancy acting only on the volume of wooden block which is submerged, not on the lead block. So volume displaced in that case will be only 250 cc, the second part. Okay, something like this also, and we are just going into through the various variety of questions of flotation. So here I have taken case when there are two different types of liquid. So we have a bottom layer of liquid which has a density of 4 rho, and it is laid with another layer of liquid which has a density of 3 rho. And what we have done here in this, what is the uniform block of length 3L. It has certain cross section S, and length is 3L. Total length is 3L. It floats vertically. So when it floats, vertically, find the length of the block, and density of the block is 3 rho. we need to find how much length of this block is in air. It is in vertical state. So there are two ways of solving the question. One, I can solve using Archimedes principle. In Archimedes principle, what we'll do here, weight of the block will be equal to volume of liquid displaced. What it displacing? It is displacing two different level liquids here. So when we say weight of the liquid displaced, this is the weight of liquid of density 3 rho. This is what volume I will take here, and this volume, this is what 4. So I'll take weight of this volume, density 3 rho, weight of this volume, density 4 rho. I'll equate to the weight of the block. That's one way of solving the question. And we can easily form the equation. And we also solve without using Archimedes principle. That also sometimes useful. So let's say if height is x here, this is L here, total is 3L. So it will be equal to how much? This will be equal to 2L minus x. This is depth. So is it possible to calculate pressure here in terms of what is the pressure here? Is it possible to calculate pressure at this level? So pressure at this level, if you take only the gauge pressure, because here also top atmospheric pressure is acting, pressure will be equal to first increase in pressure from here to here, 3 rho into G into L, plus from here to increase in pressure, that will be equal to 4 rho into G into 2L minus x. That's the pressure at the bottom. So what is the upward force acting if I take this object as a system here? Only two forces acting. Weight is acting downwards and pressure acting in the upward. So pressure into area has to be equal with weight. And what would weight be equal to? Weight will be equal to density into volume 3L into cross section area into G. So this pressure into area we multiply, we can obtain the equation. So equilibrium, weight is equal to uppermost on the bottom surface area, area A. That way also we can calculate. Okay. This equation we can form. So gauge pressure at the bottom, we can find the gauge pressure at the bottom, and this multiplied by area will be equal to the weight. So weight of the block also we can calculate, and we can get an answer, and we can get this equal to L by L. Other type of question is if you fill up any container with liquid here, and since this is a container here, its liquid is filled up to height h, and width of a container is b. So which side the b is, you have to visualize in 3 dimension. This other side, this width is b, height is h, and this container is like this 3 dimension, and the width is b here. So if we have to calculate, okay, net force exerted by the liquid on the side of the container. How do we calculate the net force exerted by the liquid on the side of container? Let's do that part here. See, let's take this side here. No, this is side here. Outside also some force is acting. What is the force acting on the outside? What is the reason for force acting on outside the container? Because of atmospheric pressure. So atmospheric pressure is acting outside. Here also atmospheric pressure is acting. And up to this point, this is atmospheric pressure. Below liquid level, the pressure becomes atmospheric pressure plus the gauge pressure. The pressure acting below this level is something like this. This is how the pressure is acting. If I draw in terms of absolute pressure, this is how the pressures are acting. And pressure is not constant. And outside also is acting, pressure is acting, atmospheric pressure. But what you easily notice here, see, if I ignore both the, see, that's why I've been mentioning all the time, when we have to calculate net force, since pressure, atmospheric pressure acting on both sides, I can ignore those two. We can cancel it out. I will only take the net force due to gauge pressure, the pressure in excess of atmospheric pressure. So I'll look at gauge pressure. So what is gauge pressure here? At this point, gauge pressure is 0. And from here, the pressure increases linearly. And at the bottom, the pressure is rho L into G into H. And is the pressure, since the pressure is linearly, when I have to calculate force also, I have to calculate, since the pressure is varying, I need to divide this whole area into small areas on which pressure is equal. So what kind of shape I need to take so that the pressures are equal? This is the side of the container. See, I have to take, since the pressure is varying with depth, I need to take an area which has constant depth. So I need to divide the area into horizontal strips so that, and this horizontal strip is at a depth h. On this depth strip, the pressure can be taken as constant, and I can calculate force acting on this narrow strip. So whenever elemental area, you have to take elemental area extending from h to dh, and I calculate force on the elemental area, and I'll add force due to all, that I get the resultant force. So dA will be equal to dA into B into dH will be the area, and then this elemental area, and suppose this place I am calculating, so dF will be equal to rho gh into B into dH. Okay, so this B is, we have width is B, so that is a force acting on a small element. The force will be gauge pressure rho gh into area, width is B here, height is h here, thus a force which will act. What is the total force? Total force, if we have to calculate from 0 to h, J is constant. This is the integration. And what we find, it comes into rho g h by 2. So the force acting on this rectangular area is equal to area multiplied by average pressure. The force is equal to area into average pressure, because here the force is varying linearly, and this average pressure works only if the area is rectangle. If area is not rectangle, is area is changing with depth, then there's no option but to integrate. Average pressure times area, as force varies linearly with h. This is valid only for rectangular areas. Okay, let's take one. This is some of the questions which have come in JEE Advanced in the past, and similar question have come in mains also. These are kind of questions which are very popular with the examiners. So let's say the cone, there's a cone here. So you can find a cone at home also, or you can make a cone. So you can, I hope all of you can visualize what the cone is. We see only triangular section, but this is a circular bottom here. So a cone with the circular base of radius r, this is given here. It is height h here, is suspended in water, just submerged. So just top point is here, it is submerged with some area. Find the net force exerted by the water on the curved surface of the cone. So here what will happen, all sides the force will act because of pressure, it will act like this. As the depth keeps increasing, pressure will keep increasing, but force will be perpendicular to the surface of the cone. Since the surface of the cone, slant surface inclined, force also will be inclined, and we can easily understand horizontal component will cancel out, but net force will be in the vertical direction. How do we find force acting on the curved surface of cone? It looks complicated, but there's very, very simple way of finding an answer. Let's see how do we solve such question. First, we understand how the forces are acting. Let's see how do we find. In this case, suppose I ask you to find force of buoyancy. Force of buoyancy is extremely easy to find here. What is force of buoyancy? Force of buoyancy is a net contact force. What is force of buoyancy? Force of buoyancy directly formula. If density is water, rho w into g into volume of the cone. That's the force of buoyancy. Force of buoyancy is very easy to find. 1/3 h height into pi r square into rho g. That's the force of buoyancy. But force of buoyancy is the net contact force. We don't want net contact force. We only want the contact force acting on the slant surface. Surfaces have two parts here, slant surface and the bottom surface. So to find force on the slant surface, I can, if I find total force, if I subtract force acting on the bottom surface, I can find out force acting on the slant surface. So this net force of buoyancy is equal to contact force on the base plus contact force on the slant surface. Is it not? That's what the equation is. So if I net terms, if I write this equation, I can find this equation. But force finding on both is very easy. How do I find force acting on the bottom surface? Bottom surface, the pressure is constant. Pressure is equal to rho gh, and area is equal to pi r square. Contact force on the bottom circular surface is pressure into area, rho gh into pi r square. Now let me write the equation here. Force of buoyancy is equal to, if I'm taking upward direction is positive, and basically what I have taken upward direction positive. So force of buoyancy is acting in the upward direction has to be equal to upward force in this direction plus Fc. So I have taken Fc is positive, but Fc will actually come out to be negative, which will indicate the net contact force acting on the slant surface or the curved surface will be acting in the downward direction. And very easy to find. The number is equal to, yeah, you can have this straight away number. So is this understood? Okay, I'll take one more question similar to this. Okay, so this was, suppose I change the question. If rather than a cone, suppose this was a triangular shape. If we have to find what is the force exerted by the liquid on one side of the triangle, how we calculate force exerted by the liquid on one side of the triangle. This triangle also I need to divide into narrow strips. Unlike previous case, I cannot take average pressure here. So what we need to do, we need to, through integration, we need to calculate force exerting on the small narrow strip, and through integration I can find the total force. If at all I have to calculate force on a surface which is not rectangle. If it is rectangle, I could have taken average pressure. Yes.
So in this case, I didn't understand how we can use gauge pressure, sir.
No, why are you okay? So when we calculate rho gh, what see if I don't use gauge pressure also, okay. See, one thing we'll notice if you look at the past also, most of the questions, unless they mention otherwise, they mention when you calculate force, basically they calculate the force excluding effect of, maybe I think I'll just add here one more term here. So whenever it's not mentioned also, if you look at the option, most questions, that's what they imply. Excluding the effect of atmospheric pressure. So assume that this is what is implied. Otherwise, your question is correct, but this is something when we calculate, we can exclude the effect of atmospheric pressure.
Okay.
I'll check that again. So wherever it's concerned, we'll ignore that part, unless it is mentioned include atmospheric pressure. This question also has come in the advance also in the past, and that's how they mentioned here. So let's look at in this case also. Let's see, is this question similar to previous question or not? Cylinder radius r and height is 2r. The radius is r, so basically diameter also is 2r, height also is 2r, is fully submerged as shown, and this sphere, solid sphere, has a hemispherical cavity. It has hemispherical cavity at the lower end. Find the net force exerted by the water on the curved hemispherical surface. And again also what we here ignore, when it says net force, ignore atmospheric pressure. We'll ignore atmospheric pressure. We'll take only due to gauge pressure. So again, this question is very similar to previous question. I have taken same question twice so that it is understood. So when we look at this, force of buoyancy is easy to calculate. The downward thrust also is easy to calculate. The downward thrust is acting on a surface which is horizontal. Only upward thrust is little more difficult to calculate. Then this is how, if I look at vertical component, this is how this is acting. So here force of buoyancy can be calculated. If I calculate this call as force downwards also can easily be calculated. And this force, we need only vertical component, horizontal components cancel out. This also can be calculated. So force of buoyancy is equal to vertically upward force minus the downward force. If I calculate this, this can be formed. That's the concept here. The force of buoyancy, net contact force. Force of buoyancy is equal to what? The volume of the cylinder minus the volume of hemisphere into rho into g. So basically we calculate volume of this cylinder, pi r square into 2r height, and then we calculate the volume of hemisphere 2 by 3 pi r cube into rho g. That becomes the force of buoyancy. So when we arrive at force of buoyancy, after calculating force of buoyancy, what we calculate contact force on the top circular surface. Top circular surface contact force will be equal to pressure into area. So this is the pressure, rho g into height into area pi r square. Now what is the equation I form if I take upward direction as positive? What is the equation I should write here? Upward direction positive, Fb is positive. Fb is equal to Fv minus downward force. So for upward force will be equal to force of buoyancy plus this force. We'll add those two to arrive at this number. Yeah, that's Fc minus this. That's the number. We do it minus. That I also have to be careful with the sign here. Okay. Okay, this is one question I've taken up. Say basically everything what you've done so far can be converted into equivalent fluid mechanics question. So there's a rod which is free to rotate about horizontal axis of uniform wooden rod of length L. Specific gravity S is free to rotate in a vertical plane about end A. This is a hinge, it can rotate in vertical plane. So axis of rotation is horizontal, and rod is released from horizontal position inside a liquid or specific gravity 1.5 S, as shown in the figure. The liquid figure is this is equal to 1.5 S density, whereas material of the rod has a density of S. What is the, as soon as released, what is the instantaneous acceleration of the rod? Okay, we can calculate alpha, or you can also ask what is the value of acceleration of end B. So let's see how do we calculate. So one important point we need to understand, there's a force of buoyancy is acting at different parts of the rod. For calculation of torque here, because this is question of rotational motion. So I need to talk about where should I apply the force of buoyancy here. The force of buoyancy, when the object is submerged, force of buoyancy acts at the center of mass of the liquid displaced. So here the liquid displaced is in form of a rod. The center of mass, the force of buoyancy also will act at the center of mass, which will be the midpoint. So we can assume the force of buoyancy also to act at the midpoint, center of buoyancy. What is it? It is at the center of mass of the liquid displaced. So this will be FB will be acting like this, and weight will be acting like this. So both are acting at the center of mass. So which one is greater here? Of course, the density of the liquid is more. So FB will be equal to 1.5 S into rho W into volume into G. Weight will be equal to S into, that becomes density. Weight is density into volume becomes mass into G. So what is the net force acting? So basically we know what's the net force acting. So here, so all you need to do, I need to calculate torque, I need to calculate moment of inertia. Torque is due to weight and force of buoyancy, and we can easily write the number. Torque will be difference of the 0.5 S rho WVG. Thus the force acting at L by 2 distance, I get torque, and moment of inertia will be equal to ml square by 3. I get that number also, I get my answer. Okay, so far what we have done when the liquid was unaccelerated. Other case, what happens if liquid is accelerated? So we keep in a vessel, and vessel has an acceleration, say A naught. Okay, so the system, so again, let me take a system which is bound by this imaginary boundary here, and forming a cuboid, and it's a cross-sectional area is A, and height is dh here. Okay, so this is a system here, and again we find what is the, how would the pressure vary. Unaccelerated liquid pressure increases in the downward direction at the rate of dp by dh. What we calculated earlier was equal to density into g here earlier. Now we see what is the change if it is accelerated. If it is accelerated, similar way, there's a pressure acting at the upper surface, there's a pressure acting in the bottom surface, and there's a mass m here, and there's weight acting, and but it has upward acceleration of a naught. So again, I can form an equation based on laws of motion and in terms of mg. And if I form the equation here, the net pressure is dp. So net pressure is p2 minus p1, p2 pi minus, I written the dp into a minus mg. So I am taking upward as positive, so acceleration is positive in the upward direction. So I have taken force is equal to difference in pressure, dp is p2 minus p1 into a minus mg is equal to m a naught. And so here, if I find what is pressure gradient here, so if I substitute in terms of mass also, if I write in terms of volume here, what is mass? Mass I could have written in terms of what is mass equal to density of the liquid into area of cross section into dh. So when I write those two terms here, mass here, see, notice here, m comes here, it becomes a naught plus g. So dp becomes equal to rho a naught plus g into dh. That's the term you get here. Or I get very simple. I think I just look at, I'm just going through this. What are the key steps involved? When liquid is not accelerated, dp by dh is equal to rho g. Now when liquid is accelerated, dp by dh becomes equal to rho g plus a naught. So that's again something very similar to what happens in case of normal reaction also. We replace G with G effective. So what we understand, if liquid is accelerating with an acceleration of G in the upward direction, the pressure gradient will be twice. The same depth earlier, what was the increase in pressure used to get here? Now the pressure increase for same depth will become twice as much. And similar way, if the liquid is accelerating downwards in acceleration of G, there will not be any pressure gradient. All points will have the same pressure. So if A naught is downward direction equal to G, whatever pressure we have at the top level, at the bottom also, the pressure will be same. And logic is fairly simple to understand here. Okay. If it is having G acceleration, we assume we take a mass, we take the same liquid. If I take liquid as a system, if it is having downward acceleration G, it means other than its own weight, no other force is acting. That's when then only it will have downward acceleration G, and that will happen when P1 and P2 are equal. So I mean, if I imagine a system as a liquid, which is a small cuboid, which is part of the same liquid, if it is having downward acceleration G, pressure become the no pressure gradient here. What happens to force of buoyancy? See, similar to in case of what is said, pressure also will vary as G effective. G effective is G plus A naught. Force of buoyancy we calculate rho L into V into G. Similar way, since the pressure variation changes, the force of buoyancy also changes in the same proportion. So force of buoyancy in case of accelerated liquid, it is rho L into V into G dash. So which G we take effective G there. Okay. And some of this, if you just this another way where you can just something you want to understand is this one more way, perhaps more conceptual. You just try and understand the contact force exerted by the surrounding liquid on the surface will be equal to force it would have exerted on the liquid enclosed, which would have the same acceleration. So if this surface encloses the same liquid, what force it will exert on this liquid block here? It will exert a force such that it gives an acceleration A naught in the upward direction. That's the force it must exert. And what is that force has to be? If the mass m is having acceleration A naught, net upward force on that mass has to be equal to mg plus A naught. And that force in this case is coming because of the contact force by the surrounding liquid. So that is something another way one can understand what the how the pressure varies due to acceleration vertical direction. We replace G with G effective. How does force of buoyancy varies? Force of buoyancy also we varies G with G dash. Okay. So if you want to understand a similar case of acceleration here, an iron block and a wooden block. So we have an iron block, and other one is a wooden block. They are contained in a vessel. And in case of iron block, we need to suspend it. It will tend to sink. So we need to support with the string. It is suspended from a string like this. Okay. So this is iron block, and wooden block will tend to go up. So we need to tie down with the string here. So both are, this is hanging, and this is also fixed to the floor with the string here. So there are two blocks. Iron block hangs from master string, and similar wooden block also floats, being tied down to the bottom with the string here. Now the vessel start accelerating upwards. What will happen if vessel start accelerating upwards? What would happen to the tension in the string? So earlier there was some tension T1 here, and there was some tension T2 here. What would happen to tension in the string? So that's a question we need to think of. How would find an answer for this? Okay, what is tension in the string in the iron when it was not accelerated? Tension in the string in the iron is equal to rho s minus rho l into Vg. Net force has to be 0. That's the tension in the string, which is equal to difference in weight of the iron minus the liquid displaced. It is weight of the iron minus weight of the liquid displaced. That was the case in the tension earlier. In case of vertical acceleration, what will happen? The effective weight of the iron also will change. If I take pseudo force in account, so effective weight of the piece of iron also will change, and effective weight of the liquid displaced also will change. So what we can do, same thing. If this was the expression earlier, when there was no external acceleration, we use G here. When there's an acceleration, we replace G with G dash. So when we replace G with G dash here, this acceleration upwards here, the tension also will increase. So in this case, tension in this also will increase. And here, what is the tension here? Similar way I have calculated floating object also. Okay, so for this also tension will increase. What is the tension T2 equal to? If I calculate tension T2, what is the tension T2 equal to? Is net force in the downward direction. What are the forces acting? T2 is acting, force of buoyancy is acting, and its weight is acting. So what is T2 equal to? T2 is equal to force of buoyancy minus the weight. So in case of T2, it will become density of the liquid first, minus density of the wood, or we can say solid here, into V into G. So here also if we place G, this tension will increase. It doesn't matter the object is suspended or floating. If we give upward acceleration, the tension will increase in same proportion as G dash by G. Another similar question you can think of, what happens to fractional submergence? So if we have a vessel in which a wooden block is floating, and if I seen earlier, wooden block, if density is, if it is floating, some mass, it has total volume V, and it has volume V as submerged. When we talk of fractional submergence, what is the fraction which is submerged? Fractional submergence. Fractional submergence is equal to what is the volume which is submerged by total volume. And what is fractional submergence? We arrive at based on simple flotation. Flotation weight has to be equal to force of buoyancy. Weight will be equal to density of the solid object which is floating into its volume into G. That is equal to force of buoyancy, which will equal to density of the liquid into volume submerged into G. So what we find, fractional submergence, which is Vs by V, is equal to density of the solid divided by density of the liquid. And this has to be lower than it will float. And what we notice in this case, this term, there's G term here also, there's G term here also. This term is a ratio, it is independent of G. So whatever fractional submergence we have, if this vessel is given upward or downward acceleration also, the fractional submergence remains unchanged. There's no change in fraction, which remains submerged. Okay, next comes horizontal acceleration. I think horizontal acceleration. Okay, let me quickly understand horizontal acceleration also. See, this something, see, all of you can easily, intuitively also we can understand if the vessel is there. And typically, you know, the liquid level, let's remain horizontal. We have seen everywhere the liquid, if it is unaccelerated, remains horizontal. What happens if we give an horizontal acceleration towards right, as we see here? And as we give acceleration towards right, slowly, but basically what happens, liquid will not have, if suddenly we give acceleration, the liquid level will start oscillating. So I'm assuming very gradually we increase the acceleration so that the liquid level also slowly, it keeps coming to different types of equilibrium. So at all times it is in the state of equilibrium kind of thing, pseudo equilibrium, or what we call as quasi equilibrium. Very slowly increase the acceleration to a final value A, and when it is having constant acceleration A, this is the shape of liquid level, and it is static. But this it is in a steady state now. So slope is constant, liquid surface is constant, acceleration is constant. Then it is horizontal acceleration A. So let's understand why does it take a shape like this. To understand this shape here, let's take a system. I have taken a imaginary cuboid of the same liquid. This liquid is also part of the entire thing, and since every single particle of the liquid is having acceleration A, because shape is not changing, this block of liquid also will have acceleration A. So this is the system I have taken, and on this block, surrounding liquid will exert pressure force. On left surface, the force will be towards right. Right surface, force will be towards left here, and its weight also has vertical component. All other surfaces have vertical component. So only on these two surfaces, pressure force will have horizontal component. And if I think of laws of motion between these two pressures, which pressure has to be more? Since this liquid is having rightward acceleration, this pressure has to be greater. That's the reason the pressure on which side is greater? On the side, and if we move in the direction opposite to acceleration, acceleration is towards right, but pressure on the left hand side is greater. So if I law of motion, I can take this cuboid and I can write the equation. I can write laws of motion equation, and all of us can easily do that also. If I take this height as we can write equation laws of motion, and based on laws of motion, I come to a relationship, variation in pressure, dP by dx. So far I've done three things here. We have started with variation of pressure in the vertical direction. dP by dh was equal to rho times g when liquid is unaccelerated. How the pressure varies when the liquid is accelerated, we said rho into g factor. Earlier, the pressure in horizontal direction, there was no acceleration, there was no dP by dx was 0. But if there's an acceleration in horizontal direction, in x direction, what is dP by dx? How the pressure varies in x direction, in horizontal direction? It varies as minus rho into a. So you notice rho term is similar. Here acceleration term is similar. So, but in place of g here, y is a negative term. You understand the pressure increases in the direction opposite to acceleration. So now the second part question comes, if the pressure is more, how is more pressure developing here? The more pressure develops because the pressure depends on height of liquid above that level. If this side pressure is more, the liquid height on this side has to be greater than liquid height on this side. So I can also find, so height, there's a difference in height. And when you have dH here, dH by dx becomes the slope of the liquid surface. So once I have dP by dx, P is equal to nothing but P is equal to rho gh. So from here, I can also find dH by dx. dH by dx is the slope of the liquid. Slope of the liquid, it is slope, it has to be dimensionless. Since it is dimensionless, it becomes equal to A by G. And we can derive that one. That part is okay. Some of you interested, you can do that. So these are the four things which are relevant here. Variation of pressure so far in the vertical direction, variation of pressure in the horizontal direction in case of accelerated liquid, and what is the slope of liquid surface when it is accelerated. And we notice here, as A increases, slope also keeps increasing. If we give an acceleration equal to g, it will have slope of 45 degree. If we give acceleration of g by root 3, the slope will be 30 degree. The slope will depend on direction of acceleration. If we give acceleration towards right, the slope will be negative. So positive acceleration, negative slope. You understand that's the relationship you want. So this is how the pressure varies in case of horizontally accelerated fluid. So I'll stop here and continue from here in the next tomorrow. Yes.